Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Sports Department Podcast. I am Stephen Bologna, joined alongside Jesse Norman and Stephen Clark, here to talk the NBA season. We're coming down to the wire, just a few games left. A lot of teams have clinched their playoff berths. A lot of teams just trying to make it into the play-in tournament just to get a chance at the playoffs. A lot of big news to get to. Jesse, I know you're excited for this one. The New York Knicks, they made the playoffs for the first time since 2013. James Harden returned for the Brooklyn Nets. They're still trying to chase that number one seed. The West is kind of a mess. The Los Angeles Lakers currently sit number 7 currently in the play-in tournament. And the West is pretty loaded, to be completely honest with you. So we're going to get to our predictions there, along with little MVP talk and the struggling Boston Celtics. But first off, how you guys doing?
I'm doing very well. I like to consider this group right here the playoff team group right here. All of our teams look like they're not going to be in the play-in. They're going to be watching that very closely, hopefully hoping one of those teams advance to another round. But we have all of our teams making the playoffs here, so it's very exciting for all of us. But otherwise, I'm doing very well altogether.
Yeah, like you said, Steve Harden came back. I think we're going to see the big three very soon. Oh, I can't wait.
Oh.
Now, Jesse, sticking with the topic near and dear to your heart, the New York Knicks. I have to go there first. I mean, they're made the playoffs.
I love this for the Knicks. Congratulations. I mean, you guys deserve it. I have nothing against the Knicks. You guys are a gritty team. You deserve it. I'm imagine what would have happened if you guys had some picks that panned out besides Emmanuel Quickly, man. No, I mean, congratulations to the Knicks. They run the city, man. They love New York. They run New York, and that's fine because it's a Nets world. They can have the city.
I don't know. The Nets have not won the chip just yet, but the Knicks, both teams will be in the playoffs. The Knicks more than likely.
I would love that first round matchup.
I would too, but it's not going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen either. No,
it won't.
But now the Knicks, man, you guys are right. It's awesome to see the Knicks doing well. It feels right again that like the Knicks are in the playoffs again, and they, like you said, Jesse, they have a good gritty team down there. You might get knocked out of the first round, but hey, you made it this far. It's a big accomplishment. It's a good stepping stone. And going back to like our opening podcast for the NBA season, I feel like a lot of us predicted like the Knicks to just almost barely get in, and it looks like they were the 4 seed for a little while. So they really exceeded expectations as a whole this season, and very shocking, very surprising, and overall just very cool. I'm happy for them.
Yeah.
And they got a lot of production from guys that I think we didn't expect them to. I mean, we didn't expect Julius Randle to turn into this all-star player. We probably expected more from Obi Toppin. I know I necessarily didn't because I thought he was a terrible pick at his position at that high when Denny Avdija was on the board. But there are a lot of guys, when you watch Reggie Bullock, what they did, and they went out and got Derrick Rose. Everybody criticized it. Oh, Thibodeau's got to go out and get his guys, but it's worked for this team. He's been a great veteran for them. He's averaged, I think it's like over 18 points per game, his last 7, something like that. There's a lot of good pieces on this team. And while a lot of people think, oh, it's just Julius Randle playing at an exceptional level, that's part of it. But this is also a good, gritty defensive team that, other teams don't want to play. They're going to put their elbows into you. They're going to play really hard defense. They're going to do everything they possibly can to lock up your star player. And Julius Randle, the main thing that's going to worry me, and the reason I think they can absolutely get the doors blown off of them in the playoffs is they don't have a shot creator. I mean, besides Julius Randle and to a degree Derrick Rose, but we need to see that in the playoffs considering how physical it's going to be. They really, like in the offseason, I would love for them to go out, honestly, like a DeMar DeRozan type player would fit this roster so perfectly, get one more guy that can really get his own shot and make the team better, just where they can focus on that defensive side and kind of go ISO ball on offense and let one guy kind of carry that load.
Yeah. As it currently sits, if nothing changes, the Knicks would have to travel to Milwaukee for that first round. And they beat Milwaukee twice. They beat Milwaukee twice this season. One game by 20 and one by 8, excuse me. So again, whoever plays the Knicks in the first round, if you get out of it, it's going to be a tough series to get out of. Like you said, Jesse, they are a gritty and aggressive defensive team. They will wear you down. And Tom Thibodeau has done such a tremendous job. And one thing that's really important to me is seeing the development of RJ Barrett. I'm so happy to see him kind of take that next step into not superstar level, but certainly a really prime piece and a necessary piece to make a successful team. And, you know, if the Knicks can extend Julius Randle, because I think this was next year is the last year of his contract, you get a good free agent in the summer.
Which that sucks, because if they would have, there's not a good free agent class this year. There's a really good free agent class next year, but now next year they have to pay Julius Randle.
Oh yeah.
So it's a thing of like, maybe they can kind of wait it out, but it would have been a great thing for them if there was a really supreme free agent coming up this year. But with that being said, a guy that I mentioned earlier, DeMar DeRozan, I believe is going to be a free agent. I would love for them to go out and, you know, kind of throw some money at him and get maybe one of those next level free agent guys.
Yeah, I mean, Brian Windhorst of ESPN reporting a few weeks ago that potentially stars might start looking at the Knicks as serious places that they want to go. And again, this is a team that was projected, I think, 29 wins this season. They have 38 currently with a few games left. This was a team that social media laughed at during the entire offseason, and now no one says a word. And I'm just happy, honestly, because no one expected this. And again, Obi Toppin, bad pick, but some of the free agent signings have worked out. Emmanuel Quickly has been such a steal there in the late first round, and he's turned into a really dynamic scorer and just electric off the bench. The trade for Derrick Rose, get that veteran leadership. I think the front office has done a really good job this season, and no matter what happens in the first round, you know, I'm just happy to see finally a light at the end of the tunnel.
I've seen, I think it was First Take was talking about, if the Knicks don't win a playoff series, is this year a failure?
No.
This year under no circumstance can be looked at as a failure when they weren't even supposed to make the playoffs, or were supposed to be a fringe team and, you know, maybe make it in the play-in, and they're already clinched. Moving forward, besides a big free agency signing, I think the big thing is going to be, you mentioned RJ Barrett and his progression. It's going to be getting that consistently. You know, he's averaging good numbers, points per games, but there's ones that he goes, you know, 22, and then there's games that he goes 7. It's going to be a big thing of getting that consistency from him. And honestly, maybe he can become that offensive ISO guy where you can just dish it off to him and he can go out and get you 20 to 22 points per game. If they get that next year, they get Barrett some progression, they go out and get, you know, a solid free agent. That's a team that's probably going to continue to be a top 5, top 6 seed in the NBA, as long as obviously Julius Randle doesn't regress at all.
Yeah, and again, like you said, I hope this year is just not a one-year wonder, because we've never seen this out of Julius Randle before, neither in Oklahoma City, New Orleans, or Los Angeles. So hopefully.
Well, I mean, he always had the potential. I mean, he was a top 8 pick, and then, you know, his first like 5 minutes of an NBA game, he snaps his leg, and then was constantly playing from behind. So Randle always had the ability and the pedigree. I think it really took a coach like Tibbs to put his arms around him and just say, hey, I know you're really talented. I'm putting all of my faith in you. You're going to be kind of this point forward. You're going to run the team. And Randle's really thrived in that role.
Yeah, another reason why I think Tom Thibodeau is a strong candidate for Coach of the Year, just to be able to turn this team around and bring them to the playoffs. And like you said, not even the play-in tournament, which a lot of people expected them to be. They're in the playoffs, so hopefully it's a bright future ahead for the Knicks. But we head over to the other team in Brooklyn, the little brother of the New York Knicks, and that's the Brooklyn Nets. And James Harden made his return finally, and a few games left. They're only 2 games behind the Philadelphia 76ers. Jesse, do you think they can catch them for the 1 seed?
Maybe if Philly was playing better teams, but they get Orlando twice to end the season. They're trying. Orlando wants to tank that as hard as they possibly can. Philly could probably sit everybody and still win those games. So I don't think so. I do think they mostly, I don't want to say it's locked, but I think the 2 seed is mostly locked up to a degree, which is good because, while then only Philly has home court advantage over you. And while you do have to see the Bucks potentially in the second round, at least they're coming off a series with the Knicks where they're probably a little bit banged up. Meanwhile, you're probably going to get the Hornets or the Celtics. So, I mean, you can't complain about that.
The biggest thing is just, can the big three stay healthy throughout the entire playoffs? And I think they can.
I mean, I
think
even
they
that.
can. I don't even think it's staying healthy. It's at the end of the day, you got these 3 superstars on the same team who haven't really played in a game together that often this season because they've been obviously injured here and there. It's been like a different one injured each week. And it's going to be like an advantage, or it's going to be a plus too, or for the other team too, because they're not going to know what to expect out of the Nets. But the Nets, on the other hand, don't know what to expect out of their own team at the same time because the chemistry might not be there out of these 3 guys. You're adding another guy into the rotation.
I don't think the chemistry is at all going to be a problem because I think they're all just so smart and they all can play off of each other so well. Like Durant is the absolute best just drop in, plug in superstar because you can put him in any system. He can literally do, you want him to be a playmaker, you want him to shoot threes, you want him to be your switchable rim protector. He can do that all. Harden as the point guard has been incredible this year, distributing the ball and being able to move Kyrie back to the 2 spot. I think when he was playing the 2, when him and Harden went on that 20-4 run, he was the best shooting guard in the NBA at the time. I don't think there was, the only person you could maybe argue is maybe Devin Booker, but the chemistry doesn't worry me. The health, I am a little concerned, but luckily they're going to get a day in between each game. Also, they've been very cautious for all of the year. I think Durant could have came back probably a week or so early. Harden could have probably came back a week or so early, but they're letting these guys take more time because they know at the end of the day, their end goal is an NBA championship, not to, try to win the most games as possible in the regular season.
What do you think their biggest weakness is, Jesse, that would hold them back?
I mean, it's got to be the interior defense, but I do think that's a little overstated. Everybody would say, oh, well, how are you going to stop Embiid? How are you going to stop Giannis? How is anybody stopping Embiid or Giannis? Nobody has the guy that's stopping those two. The difference is the Nets have guys that can go back at them. Who's guarding Kevin Durant? Who's stopping Kyrie Irving? Who's stopping James Harden? And they have more of those guys than anybody else. But definitely the size inside. If LaMarcus Aldridge isn't forced to retire, I feel a lot better. He was a huge piece of the team for the little bit that he was here. Just the interior defense and the size that he gave. DeAndre Jordan, I think, is an underrated piece against Giannis and against Embiid because don't get me wrong, DeAndre Jordan is bad a lot of times. He is not good against a lot of players, but against Embiid and against Giannis, where he just has that grown man strength, he makes them uncomfortable. But definitely inside, I think that is a worry. I also think rebounding. We're probably going to go in. There's going to be nights that Blake Griffin is our starting 5. That's not a lot of size. We're going to play small.
Yeah, I mean, again, the Nets, they have all the pieces. I mean, especially the biggest 3 to win. The play-in game starts May 18th. Playoffs start May 22nd. So we'll see. You assume the Nets, they're gonna do big things.
I think if the Nets win the championship and Dinwiddie comes back, which is being talked about, his potential return date, if they'll let him, he wants to come back mid to end of June. So he'd be back around second round, third round before the finals. If they were to win the championship this year, I think they will have had the greatest supporting cast around a big 3.
I think so too.
That's ever existed. Joe Harris, Nick Claxton, Blake Griffin, Bruce Brown, Jeff Green, and then Spencer Dinwiddie. I think that's the greatest supporting cast that's ever been put around a big 3.
a hell of a team, and especially with first-year head coach Steve Nash too. It's he certainly has the easiest job in the world with that good amount of players.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm mad at Nash a good amount of time. He gives TLC way too many minutes, way too many opportunities. But I do think it's a little, it's a little funny that he's not in more coach of the year discussions solely from the fact that, do you know how many different starting lineups the Nets have used this year?
A lot.
36.
Yeah. Wow.
36 different starting lineups, and they are the 2 seed.
Yeah, Steve, you brought up a point like, easiest coaching job, but he does deserve, I think, too, a little recognition for, like Jesse said, what he's done. And, he has to deal with the personalities here and there too. And like Jesse said, all the 30 plus combinations is just ridiculous, but he does deserve to at least be in the talking. I don't think he's going to win. We'll get to little predictions maybe later and stuff, but no, I don't think he's, yeah.
That's certainly incredible regular season. See if they can follow it up in the playoffs. Now, Clark, before we move on, I want to hear a little bit of the Heat. What's going on with them?
Oh man, we're mid. We're very mid.
Just going to the finals last year. What's going on?
Just stuff's not clicking. You know how it is. Lost a couple pieces. Got Oladipo. Oladipo's out for the year now. It's just you can't go back every year. You know how it is. And we're just not that good anymore. The hype has kind of died down a little bit around the guys. Duncan, Tyler Hero fell off a little bit, not having the same seasons. Jimmy
Harrow's fallen off.
Yeah, Jimmy's still phenomenal. Bam, defensive player of the year candidate for sure. But it's just the supporting cast. Like we don't have the tops. That's about it, man. That's all I got on the Heat, really. Nothing else. And yeah.
I think Jimmy will flip a switch in the playoffs.
Oh yeah.
I think they'll. I mean, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I think there's a chance, depending on the officiating, I think they could sweep the Hawks. I
think you'll win the first round, no matter almost who you play, maybe except for not the Bucks if they fall down to there. But
I don't think they could even fall that far. But no, I agree. But I think they could really beat up on the Hawks. The Hawks lack size.
Yeah.
And while the Heat aren't the biggest team, Bam Adebayo is such a matchup nightmare. They have absolutely nobody who can compete with Jimmy, and they're going to be very reliant on the calls that Trae Young gets. And if they're going to swallow the whistle more, I think there's a chance Miami absolutely destroys Atlanta in 4, maybe 5 games.
We'll get our little hoorah there, and then we'll get booted in another round. Maybe if we're lucky, we'll advance another one, but probably not. But hey, can't go to the finals every year. Am I right?
Yeah, tell me about it. But yeah, I mean, you guys still got Goran the Dragon Dragic just in case.
Of course.
If he wants to heat up at the right time.
Yeah, but at this point right now, going back to the Oladipo thing,
that hurts.
Looking like we lost that trade, especially if we don't re-sign him or anything. Because
I mean, didn't even give up anything.
Yeah,
but still,
I still didn't get anything. Basically, he played about only a handful of games, and then just announced that we're recording this on Thursday, May 13th. The other day, I think yesterday, Wednesday, he announced that he's done for the season and. He'll be a free agent. So
now it's a thing of what do you pay him? Like, what do you? You didn't really see him.
No,
he said he wants max money. There's no way anybody's throwing.
No one's going to give him max money.
I don't think there's a way.
No.
Unless the Knicks decide that they don't care about anything that they've built this year and just decide to throw only because they have the money. That's the only reason I say the Knicks because they're literally the only ones with the money. But nobody's, I don't think, throwing a max slot at him. At this point, I'd have to assume he's going to take another 1 year, $20 million deal, maybe 15 to 18, try to get another prove it deal kind of.
Maybe.
But no, I think that hurts. That was your big trade deadline acquisition. That was the big thing. Obviously, earlier on in the year, you couldn't get the Harden trade. The Wizards still insisted Beal was not available, and Miami always kind of was this year like a team that needed to make a move to get somebody, whether that was on the level of Beal and those guys, or whether it was a guy like John Collins or something. They needed something, and they were hoping that it was Oladipo, and then he continues to get hurt and injuries continue to make his career, it keeps hurting. It really does. And I think at this point, yeah. And at this point, you can't expect him to be that Indiana player again. You can't. That's 3-4 injuries removed at this point.
Yeah. The Heat, they're in the finals last year, lost to the Lakers. Now the Lakers, on the other hand, currently sitting in the 7th seed in the West, a team that's been bitten by the injury bug all season long. LeBron hasn't played in a while. AD was out earlier in the beginning of the season, sitting at 40-30. Dallas and Portland, both one game ahead of the Lakers. Jesse,
both on the tiebreakers as well.
What's going on with them? Can they get out of this, make a run?
They don't want to. They don't want to, because if they get up to that 6th seed, they got to play the Clippers. And you don't want to play the Clippers first round, because if they play the Clippers first round, they are getting bounced. There's not a single doubt in my mind. If they play the Clippers first round, the Lakers will get obliterated. They would much rather play the Phoenix Suns or the Utah Jazz. Absolutely. And I don't blame them. It's been injuries, but also this team just feels different from last year.
Same.
Dennis Schroeder, as much as he is a better player than Rondo, he is not locked in the way that Rondo is. Yeah. He's not the player that's gonna push them and test them and come around playoff time. You're gonna need that. And I'm sorry, I think Andre Drummond has made them worse. I've been saying it, and I said Drummond would have been good on the Nets if he completely bought into his role and stopped with all the other stuff. And he signed with the Lakers. They're still giving him post-up touches. He's still not playing a single lick of defense, despite being this massive man that he's supposed to be good at defense. It's kind of a joke, like how bad he's been. They're at this point should be playing 45-year-old Marc Gasol over him.
Yeah. He doesn't even play anymore, Marc Gasol. Barely plays.
Yeah. Barely. So it's this team feels different. I think the big thing, and this could prove to be right in the future, but allegedly they refused to move Talen Horton-Tucker at the deadline for anything substantial. And maybe that's a young player that they like. He doesn't break the rotation most nights. So I don't really understand that. At least with the Heat being like, we don't want to trade Harrow, it's a thing of, okay, he was really big in the finals. He's shown promise here and there. Talen Horton-Tucker's looked good in the G League. Like, that's about it.
That's it.
And they're really high on this guy to where they wouldn't make any trades. And I felt like this was a team that needed to make an acquisition, and the only thing they got was Andre Drummond, and he's arguably made them worse. Comparing it to last year's team, they don't have the players that they did veteran-wise. They don't have a Dwight Howard. They don't have a JaVale McGee. They don't have these guys that know what it takes to win a ring day in, day out. And with LeBron being away from the team, Davis being out for large portions of the year, this isn't the same team that can just run it back and flip on a switch, because it's a different team from last year. Yes, James is still there. Yes, Davis is still there, but they've swapped out so many different pieces.
Yeah, I agree too with you, Jesse. All those points you made, basically, for the most part. It all, once again, you said not the same team. I do agree with that, but it does come down to the injuries again with this team. It's just it killed their momentum. It dropped them how many seeds once LeBron and AD were both out at the same time. That was brutal. And thankfully, AD's back for them now, and LeBron's right at the cusp of coming back too. But he could just get injured again, and they could just lose to someone else again. But I do agree with what you said too with the Clippers. They'll get bounced right away because they verse the Clippers or the Nuggets somehow. They'll get bounced. Who knows? They might not even make it past the play in the Lakers at this point, the way they're playing and the way the team is. So it's going to be a different final this year. It's not going to be the same matchup or the same teams at all in that situation.
I think the age is starting to catch up with LeBron a little bit. As much as people don't want to admit it, I think I mean, this is a guy that didn't have an injury. It's like the first 15 years of his career.
Yeah.
And then last year and this year, the injuries are starting to not pile up, but they're starting to come out. And, he's relied on so heavily.
I think it goes to the Davis injury, because if Davis doesn't go down, LeBron doesn't have to carry that load the way he did.
Yeah.
But that being said, we know Davis is going to get hurt every single year. That's been a constant since he's came out, is that Davis gets hurt every single year.
Yeah. Now, I mean, speaking of the West, I mean, who's your favorite to come out of the West? Because this is a conference led by the Jazz and the Suns, and you still have the Clippers and the Lakers who are dangerous. I mean, who comes out?
I think if the Jamal Murray injury doesn't happen, Denver would honestly be my pick. But with that going down, I'm going with the Clippers. And it's a team that nobody in the national media is talking about, because last year it was a fun topic to talk about. Oh, they don't have any chemistry. They don't have this. They don't have that. Well, that's gone now, because they do. They're scheduled to be the best 3-point shooting team of all time based off percentages. They're really good. They're really good, and everybody knows their role, and they play really well together. They needed a point guard. They needed somebody to play make. They needed somebody to draw up their plays, to help them out pretty much in all those different ways, and they got that in Rondo. And I think they're going to make it. I don't think there's a team that's honestly going to even be able to really compete with them that much.
Yeah, I would say the Clippers. Utah's pretty good too. If I had to pick a dark horse, though, I kind of like what the Mavericks have been doing lately. I'm a big fan of them, but I just don't think they have enough depth on the team to make a deep playoff run in general.
Also, Kristaps isn't good.
Not the same, no. But I like Portland too, honestly, in a way. I love Dame. I'm a huge Dame fan. But there's always a front runner. Those are dark horses if people get hurt or a little bit of luck here and there. But I do like the Clippers or Utah definitely coming out of the West.
I want to say Utah, but this is the same song and dance every year. They have an incredible regular season, and then they come to the playoffs and they lose. So I don't know who to go. I'm with you, Jesse. I think my final answer is going to be the Clippers.
Yeah.
If Chris Paul can lead the Suns, I think that'd
awesome.
be incredible. I don't know if he can, but
for the Suns to be a legit team, I need Ayton to be about double the player that he actually is right now. I need him to be better. They have a lot of good pieces, but they absolutely do not have the front court to compete in the West, I don't think. Because their three best players are all point guard, shooting guard, and a forward. They have absolutely nobody, or a wing, not really a forward in Bridges, but they need more front court depth. They need a guy who's going to actually control the paint, and I don't think Ayton is that, at least not yet.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Paul's worked his magic pretty much every team he's gone, so we'll see if he can do it with the Suns one more time. But before we go, anything else you guys want to highlight? Give me an MVP prediction. One word answer.
Oh, it's Jokic. It's Jokic.
Give me Embiid then. I'll change it up.
I'll go. I think I'm going to go Jokic as well. Curry, I think, is a dark horse. He's going to definitely need the media's
There's
attention.
A couple others.
I think they're seated too low. They're seated too low.
Give me Kawhi instead of Curry, honestly, at this point.
Yeah, but just a few games left in the regular season. We are looking forward to the rest of the NBA season. Clark, sign us out.
You guys know the drill by now, but thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Sports Department Podcast. Us three appreciate it. Justin and Joe appreciate it as well. Subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. Follow us on our social medias on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Sports Dept Pod. That's Sports DEPT Pod. We have a pay-per-view coming up this weekend, WrestleMania Backlash. So there'll be predictions and reviews and reactions for that. Justin said he had an idea for a new NFL podcast to do, so we're probably going to incorporate that sometime this week. And then playoffs are starting. Steve, I think you're doing an NHL one pretty soon. So NHL playoffs podcast is coming. Basketball NBA playoffs podcast will be coming too. So stay tuned to all that fun stuff, and we'll see you in the next episode.